So while I got the truck apart and I'm doing some maintenance to it, I kind of wanted to just go over how I assembled the truck. I do kind of have build videos on what I did, but it was such a long period of time from the time I started the truck. So it was about 2 years from the time I started the truck to the time I got it running. And there were things that I did in between that I didn't really document on video. And like, when I turned the camera on, I just had a bunch of things done and I didn't really explain how I did it or how I got to that conclusion. And a lot of it was just trial and error. And like you'll see as the video goes on, the exhaust, I actually bought a turbo kit, the hot side, and none of it fit at all, except the one header, which you'll see how the crossover pipe, I made it. I didn't even use the crossover pipe the kit came with. And then the turbo manifold on the passenger side, it didn't fit at all. It was advertised to fit a C10, and I guess the frames are different. The control arm was right in the way. It just didn't work. And for my opinion, the amount that I would have had to modify it to make it work, and where the pipe would have came in, I would have had to use a smaller pipe. And I didn't want to do it that way. So I bought the cast iron manifold and built the rest of it almost. So I wanted to show everybody like what my kit's made of, what all is in there that puts it together. Everything in that kit, my whole kit, is for the most part either Amazon or eBay. Some stuff are from random websites like SS Autochrome or Silicone Intakes, but most of those guys sell on Amazon or eBay also. So some of it came down to like if I had I use a PayPal credit card. If PayPal, you can almost use it with everything, but you can't use PayPal that I found anyway on Amazon. So that would favor me to buying something on eBay. So, depending on what it was. And I wasted a lot of money trying to figure out what fit with each other, especially like the AN fittings and whatnot. So, I wanted to give you guys an idea of what I went through and how I put it together so you don't have to waste that extra amount of money. I must have bought, 3 or 4 different exhaust manifolds and turbo headers and all this stuff before I figured out what worked with each other. And I'm fortunate enough I learned how to weld in high school and like the trade school part, the vocational. I literally bought my welders off of my MIG welder, which I didn't do much welding with the MIG welder. I did a lot with the TIG welder. With the TIG welder, I made a review video of that. It was a $400 welder. Most of my fabrication for the hot side was with the TIG welder. And the MIG welder, I wound up doing like the muffler and all that. I MIG welded all that, but that was later on. I from the time I bought the TIG welder to the time I bought the MIG welder was maybe 8 months apart. So I didn't buy them both at the same time. Again, it's one of those like kind of high dollar tools. For me, I use them fairly often, so it was worth it for me. But if you don't possess the skill to weld and or, that's 220 volt, I had to wire it into the panel. If you don't have a way to hook it up, it can be, difficult to use it. And especially like a MIG welder, the 110 volt stuff, it's not like hot enough to really do anything with. So welding, like I said, unless you already know how to weld, and I mean, if you're wanting to learn, that's one thing, but you can't expect a good quality end product from something you learned on. There's nothing wrong with, like I mentioned in the video, the factory manifolds are cast steel and not cast iron. You can MIG weld or TIG weld on those. They won't crack. If you have like a wire feed welder, like a flux core welder, you could very well weld on those manifolds and it would work, You might have little pinholes and it might leak exhaust. You'd see the black soot coming through, but that's what goes along with learning. So, also, in the video, I wanted to just cover, all of the parts that's needed to put the turbo kit together, how they work with each other, and like why I made my decision for the parts that I made. Obviously, You know, I'm running 10 pounds of boost on that GT45 turbo. And again, that's an Amazon bushing style turbo. They're like $200. 10 pounds of boost isn't a lot, but you know, the blow off valve that I chose is 50 millimeter or something. I know the wastegate's 50 millimeter, but the blow off valve's larger. If you get a smaller, let's say like, what's the one the import cars use? The not the HKS, but there's another one, the Type S. I forget who makes that. Is it the Greddy Type S? Is it Greddy? I can't remember. But it's a little tiny port. It may not discharge or just dissipate the air quick enough. You know, you need larger valves to manage the air quicker. You know, and I also I bought that sheet metal intake manifold, and it wasn't a good decision in my opinion. I had to do a lot of things to make it work, including bigger O-rings for the injectors so it didn't suck air or leak boost. I didn't really cover that, but that's what I had to do to make it work. The O-rings that come with the injectors that I got, when you put the injectors in, they're loose. You can move them around and they don't fit right. So, I think the only other thing I wanted to add for this intro part of the video was the kit that I put together could be applied to almost any rear-wheel drive car. It's not specific to my truck. However, like if you're doing this to like say, you know, an old Volvo or Mercedes or something, the chassis is going to be different. You might want to route your pipe a different way. That's where all the welding skills and fabricating skills come into play. You're limited to what you're capable of doing at that point. You're obviously not going to find a hot side turbo kit for, you know, a 240 Volvo. You know what I mean? It's. I don't think anybody makes one. If they do, it's probably going to be expensive, really expensive. So that's it for the intro. Let's get to the video. So I'm back at this. I got the heads back on. I kind of just wanted to cover how I put the truck together. I didn't want to cover my last video with this. I took everything apart and I didn't inspect anything. So I inspected the camshaft. The camshaft is fine. Put the new lifters in. That's all stuff I've covered in another video. I didn't want to make this video about putting the engine together. What I wanted to make the video about was like how I put the turbo kit on and made everything work. So one thing I found with, and I'm sure you could do this with the factory manifold. In fact, I know you can do it with the factory manifold. I got this little vacuum block right here. Right there. So this little guy, I got stuff all over. This one nipple that's still capped off, that's gonna wind up going over here. I just haven't put the vacuum thing on, haven't needed it yet. But this main one here, that's what runs to your manifold. So instead of running everything like, you know, teeing things off, everything goes to that block. And then from there it goes to everything. Like this clear plastic line is the boost gauge. This one here comes over here. So this goes to the blow-off valve, which mine lives right here. What's this one here too? There we go, my map sensor. So I wanted to take all the blue tags off of this stuff this time. That one goes to the map sensor, which just kind of lives down there. And if you wanted to go, that's a 2-bar. If you wanted to go to like a 3-bar or whatever, you simply just change that there. You don't have to mess with the manifold at all, which I covered in another video. My manifold has no provisions for a map sensor, which is why I did that. Anyway, let's go look at the manifold. So the manifold itself, I'm using the EV1 injectors. These were $60 or $80 off of Amazon. So far, they've been treating me good. I do have a way to test injectors, and this one injector with the paint on it was actually stuck shut when I got them. And I flow tested them. Unfortunately, like, I'm not smart enough to figure out if they are actually what they were advertised for, but I was able to compare them all against each other, and they're all flowing the same, whatever they may be. So far, they seem to be okay. I believe they were advertised for like 62 pound an hour. Now, like I said, the little device that I used, I could probably figure out if they're actually 62 pound an hour, but like I said, I was just comparing them to each other. And this one, it took a little while till it finally opened, and then it was fine. But bottom side of this thing, this is, I've gotten some questions about this. And one guy said that these are British standard threads, and that was why I had such an issue getting this stuff all together. For the manifold air temperature sensor, I broke this out of the plug for the mass airflow sensor, because the factory mass airflow sensor, the intake manifold or the intake air temperature sensor is built into that. So back at my PCM, I just cut the wires out that go to the mass airflow, shut it off in the PCM, and ran the 2 wires to the sensor, and that's how I get my intake manifold temperature, which so far has been working pretty good. These 2, obviously, I just tapped them or blocked them off. They don't do nothing. And in this one, I decided to go with a 90-degree bend, and I'm using a new hose. The one that I had on here, I don't know what it was, but it like got petrified. So I'm about to put this on here. This is how I get around this. I put the hose on, I'll use a clamp, and then after I put the manifold on, then I can mess with the hose up on that block. And it's so far been pretty good to me. So we'll see how it goes this time around. But like I said, I now that I own one of these, I bought it just because I thought it looked cool. Is it worth the money? Not really, other than it looking cool. At least not for, I don't know. Like I said, I'm only running 10 pounds of boost. I'm not making a whole bunch of power. I don't sit up at the high RPM. I drive it to work and back so far. I've only driven it 1 week, but that's where it's been. Now, as far as this here goes, let's go look at the one in the Blazer. All right, so I'm using this flashlight, which I don't like to do, but I've blocked it off on this, but this one here, this port is meant to go to your master cylinder. This one I've blocked off because I'm using an external vacuum thing, but you could use like this one here and bring this one over to a vacuum block and then do what I did on the red truck, and it'll be perfectly fine. You want a larger diameter, 5/8 or so. You don't want to use, I don't even know if this has any, like, see this one, you'd have to like break this off to use it. These are made to be like optional. You wouldn't want a small one like that. Reason being, you want fast acting as far as manifold vacuum. If that throttle body's open or closed, you want it to happen pretty quickly. You don't want a smaller port's going to react slower. And see this one, this is where the map sensor goes in this, so you wouldn't even have to worry about that on the factory intake. But that's an option. If I was to do this all over again, obviously I am with this. I'm using the factory manifold as long as I can. And this is just a truck intake, so in the old Blazer. So anyway, let's get back to the turbo kit. Okay, so what I got on this truck, I'll explain what all this junk is here, but I've got this header for the driver's side, connects with a V-band to this, goes underneath the oil pan up to the other side to the cast iron manifold, and then that goes up to the turbo. So I'll explain how I came to this conclusion here. This is literally, and you can see the weird bend in here, this is literally something I picked up off of like a diesel truck in the junkyard and just hacked it up and cut it. That's what all these welds are and everything, till I got it to fit. And I originally bought this SS Autochrome. Where this dumps down runs right into the upper control arm, which is why it's cut. I think this actually went here like this, but I cut it. I'll use this for a different project, but don't waste your money on this. This originally came with this, and then it had its own crossover pipe, but it didn't work for what I was doing at all. So I used this header because I had it, and of course this is from the S10. The reason I have this out here is I prefer to use these V-band clamps like you see here instead of, you know, they come with these things. That's just my preference. If you're good at welding and you have a welder, by all means, get yourself one of these. And, you know, also, if you don't want to do this, you can, these original manifolds are cast steel. They're not cast iron. And you can weld a V-band directly onto these. So if this is your budget, there's nothing wrong with this. Spend, I think these are like $22 a piece, and you can continue on, you know, like if you were to go like this, you could do this. These are just really junky in my opinion because of these like paper gaskets. I guess you could get like the copper ones. All the hardware they give you, and again, this is all Amazon stuff. None of this is brand name stuff. So that's a manifold setup. I spent a little bit extra money and got this manifold. I love it so far. So this isn't a waste of money. The rest of the kit, you could use factory manifold on the driver's side, make your own crossover pipe. I went with a 50mm wastegate. These are $60. Wastegate's been working flawlessly so far, the 1 or 2 days that I had it working. So we'll see. I would Loctite these bolts in though. I had a couple of them fall out. And to set the wastegate up, you got 2 ports. The top one is what you would hook up to like a nitrogen cylinder to a boost, like a dial a boost to slam the valve shut to make it get more boost. This one here I have set up it has a vacuum line. I tap this in here, Loctited it, and it goes right to there. This turbo didn't have a spot anywhere in the front for it, so I just put it in this. So on this truck I use, these are Vibrant 90-degree bends, 2.5 inch I believe. And as far as my downpipe, I just made that. This is all off of a Ford F-250 that would have gone to the particulate filter. It's pretty thick wall stuff. This is not. And then this you saw in my other video is like auto parts store stuff. So that's pretty much it for my downpipe. And then of course, get yourself a good filter. I like Vibrant. My bed's loose. Interesting. I like Vibrant. I buy a lot of their stuff. And get yourself one of these guys, because turbos are hot. So let me show you the oil feed and drain. All right, so bottom side of my truck here, I forget what my lift is, or my lowering kit is. I want to say it's a flip kit in the back, whatever that adds up to, and then 3-inch coil springs in the front. That's where I'm at. I had drop spindles and the lowering springs in the front, drop shackles and the flip kit in the back, and it was too low. The cross pipe was actually hitting the ground, just getting it out of my garage here. So I lifted it back up, and I'm happy with where it's at. 3-inch coil in the front, flip kit in the back. That's it. You don't even need the C-notch in the back, but I did mine just because I had the whole kit. So the oil return, I spent the money and got ICT's front cover, and they have it set up for a twin turbo. This one's blocked off, and this is the one that I'm using right here. So this one here goes to, I think, a -8, and then that goes up to the bottom of the turbo. I'm running an H3 oil pan, no clearance issues. It's a H3, or the hot rod oil pan as I call it. You can see where it comes down here. Oh, my Kruger's getting stuck on everything. And that little thing right there, if you're running twin turbos, you can get the line to run 2 turbos. I got 1 turbo, so that's the tap kit. I think a 4 AN line, and then that stainless steel braided line runs all the way over here up past the power steering pump and up towards the turbo. And I still have to do mine, but my front main seal, as you saw in my other video, blew out. So if you do decide to go with the ICT front cover, take the seal out and glue it in place with some silicone or something. So another option for oil return would be, let me get my other oil pan. And I don't know if I covered this or not, but engine mounts. Factory V8 mount here, rubber, and then these are equivalent to like the Dirty Dingo style. These are pre-drilled for the C1500. You get two positions. The Dirty Dingo ones are slotted, so you can move it forward and backward. Now to run all of my ICT, so for my particular setup, I wanted to run the big sand and air AC compressor. So I got this bracket, and it runs the power steering pump from like a 2003, 2004, 2500 HD. This has the two returns because I'm running a Hydro Boost. And that runs off of my power steering pump, so I like Hydro Boost. And then I got this weird setup here. If anybody has any questions about all this, I did have to notch my frame. I believe I made a video about notching the frame to make this pulley fit, which this is such a beefy area, I don't believe it hinders the integrity of this frame at all. And then I did the alternator relocation kit that lives right next to the turbo. So that's what this bracket here is for. And then I haven't figured out my heater core yet, mainly because it's only cold in the area I live in like 2 months out of the year. So air conditioning is way more important to me. But those, if you're doing non-turbo, you can literally just bring them over and hook them up and you're good to go. But if you're doing turbo, I'm going to have to figure out how to bend these, not bend them, but put a little 90 up and then bring them up higher is all I got to do. I just haven't done it yet. So what else can I add? I made a video about the Charge air cooler, water to air. I don't think I've edited it yet. I got to edit that and get it up. But that runs to a small radiator out here, and this is SS Autochrome also, or silicone intakes, one of the two. So a small radiator. This is the water pump. Water pump right now is just going to the fuse box. When you turn the key on, the water pump runs. Doesn't need to be like that, but and then of course you got 3/4 inch hose cycling the water, and then the tube that I showed you before comes down across here to the lower part, comes out here, loops around, and goes to the intake, and seems to be working fine. So let me show you another option you can do, but I haven't tried it yet. I don't know if it'll work, but if you have a different chassis, like my 2500, it'll work. So this is a stock factory oil pan. I think you can actually run these in the 1500s, but this is a little lower. So if you're going to lower your truck a lot, take that into consideration. The Hummer H3 muscle car oil pans don't have a big area right here. They're narrower. So this bolt-in bulkhead that I got here, you don't have a flat spot. But my 1500 that I'm eventually going to put a turbo kit on, I'm going to put this oil pan on it, and this is going to be the oil return, the oil feed back to, oil drain from the turbo back to the oil pan. So just wanted to give some people some ideas, and this is available, I believe, on Amazon also. They just call it a stainless steel bulkhead for, I think it's 8 AN. And I'm actually a fan of AN stuff, so I've converted everything to AN. So other things to mention, like I said, I switched my fuel lines over to AN straight away. So the feed obviously comes up, if I can find it. Gee, where is it? Oh, hidden back here. There we go. So that's my feed. That goes to this rail. And then in the manifold, it crosses over, it goes over there. And then I got a small line that goes back to the regulator. And then the regulator, you know, obviously that's what it does. I can adjust my rail pressure. I got mine set at 60 PSI. Then this just goes back to the tank. So that's how I have my fuel set up. And then transmission wise, this is a 4L80E. This is the early style out of like a 6.5 liter turbo diesel is literally what I got this from. I did have to shim my starter. And I made that was a video I have up too. I was trying to start it and it was just zinging away on the flex plate here. You see how I got my coolant lines ran. Now this is an early style 4L80E. The late style 4L80E, which is the better one, your return, I think it's this one or this one. Anyway, it comes in back here. This one said to have some stronger components inside of it, but it lacks in the cooling department. So the only modification I've really done to this, I dual fed the direct drum and the accumulators are blocked off. There's a block off plate on there. So to make this work, factory 10 bolt rear end, factory drive shaft, and that comes up to the bastard joint, the small end of the big end. And then this is just a cheap $40 slip yoke. So this was a bolt-in style rear yoke. You just take the bolt out, and then you have to get the 400 turbo 400 style yoke, and then pretty much it. That's how you get it to work. Haven't had any issues with it yet, but I haven't really been doing anything with it to have any issues with it. So we'll see how long that holds up. If it flings the drive shaft, I just hope it doesn't mess my tank up. Okay, I think that's about it. My goofy bracket that I made to hold my exhaust because it was too short and I didn't have more pipe. Why was my bed loose? Oh, a bolt's loose. Interesting. How many more are loose? Oh, that one's missing. So 3 things we can note here. The gaskets that these manifolds come with are absolute garbage. Go get yourself Felpro ones from, I looked them up online. I don't know what these come off of. I think, like, I honestly don't know. Whatever an LS1 is. Second thing is this throttle body. Go through and like all the set screws for all this stuff. Even your idle control, the idle control, I think I use blue Loctite, but everything else, all these set screws and everything, I use red Loctite in. The third thing is I used a 1/2-inch drill bit and drilled for the idle control valve. I drilled in this way, and I remember when I was doing this, when I was drilling that, I accidentally got into where the throttle blade goes, and I had to weld it. So if you do decide to do this, pay really close attention to where you're at with the throttle blade. Otherwise, you're going to have to weld it like I did. The other thing is these screws they give you are way too short. They only stick out about this much. I forget how many millimeters. It's like 70 millimeters or something. I put the adapter on for the truck, and then you got to run 2 gaskets in there, which I think one's an O-ring and the other one's a paper gasket. Oh, and that's the other thing. This little guy here, you don't need it. So, I mean, I guess you could hook it up to the PCV valve if you wanted. But I just threaded it and tapped it with, I think, 1/4 inch pipe thread and plugged that. So, I think that's it as far as manifold goes. That's what I was saying. There's a lot of like extra stuff you have to do to make these work. It's kind of not worth it. I would recommend, like I did with the transmission lines, getting some metal lines and 3/8 and run metal lines. This is just like the Amazon kit, which as long as you can keep it away from heat, you're all right. All right, so end of the video. There's a lot of things that I didn't talk about even in my like build situation. The wire harness, I think there was a video where I showed the harness laid out and I'm like picking wires out, weeding wires out. Any of this, you can send me a message and ask. It's like LT1swaps.com or something. The guy has all the pinouts of what the computer is, and he has them all highlighted telling you that they're for standalone use. So like the evap purge solenoid and your downstream O2 sensors and you know, whatever else goes along with like emission stuff that you just don't need, it's just grayed out. You don't need them, and it'll show you what pin number it is. You can literally go and just pluck them out of the big plugs, and that's it. You just weed them out of the harness, and you're good to go. That's kind of one thing I didn't talk about. Another thing I didn't talk about really was how I got the harness, like the oil pressure, all the stuff in the truck. You have to bring power. Now on the C1500 specifically, I don't know about any other car, but you have to bring like a 10 gauge wire into the dash over behind the glove box, and there's another plug there. You have to give that power in order for like the headlights to work, your blower motor to work, you know, all of the accessories for the truck. And you have to, you know, fuse protect that. So I think the factory harness would just go through that little port on the passenger side. Underneath the receiver dryer, there's a port where the plug goes through. I think that power wire comes off the little block on top of it where all of the fusible links are and just goes down there and goes inside the truck. So I went the long way around, and then a reason I didn't really talk about that was I kind of hooked things up one at a time as I needed them, and I was learning as I was going also. So, you know, when I'm making these YouTube videos, like I'll pass my knowledge along, but I don't want to make a video as if I'm an expert on the subject and, you know, this is how it needs to be. Obviously, like, there's an upshift light. If you're going to do a manual, I think there is a pin on the PCM that you can hook that upshift light to. Me, I didn't use it. You know, it's just hanging out in there. So, and another thing like the speedometer, there's enough information out there to get the speedometer working. I didn't get mine working. I don't even know if I'm going to use the factory gauge. I don't know. But all I can tell you is that I believe there's a conversion box that goes from the output signal from the PCM, converts the signal, and then goes to that wiring behind the glove box to operate your speedometer. That's all I really know about it. I haven't hooked it up. The PCM, it's a factory PCM. I'm using HP tuners to edit things, to shut things off. I haven't really talked about that because that's a learning curve for me also. On HP Tuners forum, there's enough information and enough helpful people that can guide you in the right direction. Facebook also. Facebook, I'm finding that there's more, I guess you call them trolls, where when you have a question, they just want to like make fun of you instead of like actually help you. And then you just have to weed those people out, and then, you know, just find, when I first got the truck started, one of the harness that goes on the coil packs I had backwards because I wanted where it pigtails out to the plug in the back. Well, on the driver's side, it needs to be to the front. I overlooked that, and it kept backfiring and you know, through the intake, and it just wasn't happy. And somebody told me that. They're like, go back and look, you probably got that backwards, you know. And I'm not the first person, and I'm not the last. I see people coming in saying the same thing. It's popping and backfiring and everything while they're trying to start it. It's like, I've been there, you know what I mean? What happens in our community, I think we're working on our project and we're in the zone kind of talking with everybody, and things are fresh on our mind. And after a couple months go by, we don't want to talk about it. It's not interesting to us anymore, and we move on. And that's kind of, I think, what happened. So I've been working on this truck so long that the truck actually became like popular again. I got the truck when, like, I don't know, I found out like a year after I owned it that people were actually looking for them. That's like a thing again, you know. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird, but whatever. And I'm finding all of these like new young people coming in, and it's new to them. You know, it's exciting to them. And I think it's funny because it's like, to me, it's old news. I've had a few of these trucks. This is the first time I'm doing a build like this, but um, you know, I don't feel I'm in a situation to, like, unless I've experienced it and I can help somebody out, I'm not going to sit there and do like an instruction for the wiring harness. You just need to probe around, and if you're any good at electrical, I can hold my own. I'm not going to brag about my electrical skills because obviously I don't know everything. I'm in the books looking at, you know, the Haynes and Chilton's books, and online looking up harness pinouts and all that. Also, I'm just like everybody else, you know. I don't just know what the harness does. You know, people can ask me, and I had a parts truck, it was an 87, and mine's a 94, and that plug behind the glove box was completely different. The dash harness was completely different. So, you know, just because I've done it to my 94 doesn't mean I can help you on your 87 because it's a different animal. You know, they wired it different. So that's it. I did the 4L80. That I got out of a junkyard truck in the junkyard with a 6.5 liter turbo diesel. I don't know what really possessed me to do the 4L80 over a 4L60. 4L60 has better gear ratios and it doesn't rob as much power, but I guess you know, all the known problems with them. But there's enough Sonex stuff out there to fix the 4L60 problems where I could have fun with it. But I had to do the segment swap in the computer, in the PCM. I got a custom OS, and I made a video about that, how to pick your PCM, you know, so you can have all the different custom OSs on there. So my first PCM didn't have all that stuff, and I still have it here, but I wound up going to the salvage yard buying another one. At that point, I brought a tool battery with me, my laptop, and my little bench harness, and I could scan each PCM and be a little more picky about what I was buying. Once I found the PCM that had, you know, 2-bar and 3-bar real-time tuning options available, I was like, okay, this is the one I want. And then that's the one I brought home, purchased the key to unlock it, and that's what I'm using. So that's how I wound up with that. I did make a video about that, but if you're gonna go into boost, like, you know, and this is something I never realized, but 1 bar is atmospheric pressure. There's really no room in there to go into boost. You need a 2-bar, although that's 32 pounds or whatever. Half of that 1 bar is just atmospheric pressure. So even though it's a 2-bar, you can only really account for 15 psi, if that makes sense. It took a little while for that to sink into my little pea brain, but if you want to run more than that, you need the 3-bar or a 4-bar. But on my PCM, the P01, the 0411, there is only you can either pick the 2-bar or 3-bar. There isn't an option for a 4-bar. I know a 4-bar exists, but not for these. So that's kind of your limit, which I don't know. Mr. Random, one of the guys I follow, he's running, I think, 8 pounds, and he checked in around 500 horsepower. So for a street car, I'm happy with that. That's kind of where I want to be at. So if you want any more than that, you could do the 3-bar. There's guys setting records on it with the factory PCM, and that's if you want to learn to tune, like I said, the whole HP tuners thing, I'm not an expert on it. I'm learning every day I go, and the more and more I find out. The hard part is not knowing what to search for. I'm doing, and I made a video about that too, tuning with the wideband, and instead of the long-term and short-term fuel trims in the corrections, I made a corrections table based off of the wideband. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about that because I linked that video to the guy that I saw, and I just basically copied what he did. It's kind of what we're doing. We're just sharing information here, but it works. It's been working. I got the truck down. I'm doing these lifters, and once it's done, I should be able to drive it without fearing about ruining anything else. So I'm going to go on from there. But I think that's it for an outro. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was educational for you. If there's anything that you have any problems with, you know, that's why I make these videos, to help people out on their own time, on your own time. You can sit at home and watch these videos over and over, and if there's a detail that I learn a lot from just kind of watching people, especially like building these transmissions. I learn a lot from not the things they tell you, but watching what they do. And it's like, why did they just, you know, put that seal in backwards, or, you know, whatever, you know, and then that builds a curiosity to, they're doing something they either forgot to mention or didn't want to tell you about. And there's a lot of YouTubers out there that kind of hide their trade secrets that way. And, you know, I've come across a bunch of things where it took me a little while to find the terminology for what I'm searching for, so I can better articulate the question to make sense, like in a Google search. Because there's a lot of times I'm putting random words in, you know, like 4L80 direct drum seal delete, you know, and you know, later on you find out it's, you know, dual feeding the direct drum. You know, it's like, okay, what, you know, it's just part of what you do. And like this 400 that I did, that was actually in the instructions. Like the valve body itself does that automatically. So you're just following along with it. And it's, I don't know. Once you do it a couple times, you kind of get used to what they do. But when you're first learning it, it's a curve, you know, learning, picking this stuff up. So I think that's it. That's the outro to this video. Hope you enjoyed everything. We'll catch you on the next one. If you have any questions, shoot me a message here. And I guess I got to start saying the like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. I'm growing. I'm like 125 subscribers. I got to get my viewable hours up and 1,000 subscribers, and then I can be monetized. And you know, that will allow me, like, if I actually start making money with these videos, I can actually start going out and doing some cool stuff. I'll actually have a budget for it. So if there's anything you want to see, I try to do like some repair videos here and there. I don't do them as often as maybe I could. Normally I'm just doing a repair video on like stuff I'm working on, but like I am a mechanic in a shop and I work on a lot of stuff. As a flat rate mechanic, I'm more interested in getting in there and getting the job done, and not so much setting the camera up, because every time you set the camera up and make these videos, it takes 10 times longer, because sometimes you got to do the same thing over and over again until, you know, the video angle's right or the lighting's right. You'd be surprised how much longer recording yourself doing something actually is. But anyway, I'm going to end this here. We'll see everyone later. Thank you.